Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with me, Gary Lineker. No Micah or Alan today as they're both tied up, not literally of course. I do have with me though a very special guest, a hero in fact to us Foxes fans, a goalkeeper that started his career at Manchester City, eventually having travelled around found himself at Leicester City, where he spent more than a decade in the club's most remarkable period in its history. He's now at Anderlecht and is looking forward to another Euros with Denmark, for whom he has 100 caps. He is, of course, Kasper Schmeichel. Kasper, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Well, just me today. It's great to have you on. I know it's not probably the most your happiest day because it didn't quite go as you wanted with Anderlecht yesterday.
No, we had an opportunity to take a very big step towards winning the league, but yeah, we lost yesterday, and now we can still do it. It's still possible, but we're now at the mercy of other people's results. So slightly disappointing, but you know that's the way football is sometimes. But we believe as long as there's a chance mathematically we can do it, then. You know, I think anyone who's followed Belgian football, particularly last season, there was 3 different winners of the league in the last 10 minutes of the season. So, you know, anything can kind of happen. And while there's still a chance, we're up for it.
Well, you know all about miracles. We'll come to that a little bit later. I want to start with the early days. I think we always do that with these kind of long form interviews. We start. But most people know yours because it's slightly different. It's slightly different to most footballers, of course, because of your father. Do you ever get bored of talking about the fact that he's your dad and you play in the same position and all that stuff? No,
I think particularly in my younger years, and for anybody who's kind of been in that position, you're fighting for your life, for your identity of who are you in this game. You know, you are someone's son. And in a way, speaking for myself, I kind of tried to distance myself a little bit from it. But at the end of the day, I can't be anything but proud of who my dad is and what my dad's achieved. And, you know, when you look back at his career, recently the 99 documentary just came out a few days ago, and I've been sat watching that and just to think how incredible a career he had. It's like I say, it's not something I want to distance myself from or ever have wanted to distance myself from, but particularly I think in my earlier years, I kind of had to, because you're always going to be viewed as someone's son until you've done, you know, kind of carved out your own career. And you know what? It still happens. And that's the kind of realization I've come to, is that people are going to talk about it, and for me, it's my life, and it is how it is. So I can't really change that. I don't want to change that. And I get it. It's a really interesting story, because it is a rarity that two people, a father and a son, end up playing at the highest level and you know, winning some pretty amazing things. And yeah, it's a unique story. I get it.
It is, and I know your dad obviously very well, Peter. I've worked with him many times, and he's immensely proud of you. I know. I don't know whether he tells you.
Oh, he does. He does. He's very good at that.
I'm sure he does. Yeah. Did he ever say to you when you were really young, "Do you really want to be a goalkeeper? Do you want to make it a bit easier for yourself and perhaps play outfield?"
No, I think the thing both my parents always instilled in me was do whatever you love. And if football was whatever I loved, which it was, then go for it. But he also prepared me. You know, he said, "Okay, that's what you want to do. Here's what to expect." Having obviously been in the game for so long, he knew a lot of the trapdoors and a lot of the things you know not to do and the things to do. But also, he always said to me, you have to accept the fact that whatever you do will never be enough. It will always be because of your dad to start off with.
Or you're not as good as your dad.
And that's still the case now. You know, people are going to compare careers. Of course they are, because we both played the same positions and have played in the same leagues and national teams. And he always said to me that whatever you do in the game, you'll always be judged harsher. You'll never get the recognition or adulation that you might deserve. And whatever happens, it will always be harder for you. So as long as you accept that fact early, then you're not going to be fighting with it. Then you're not going to be, it's not going to be a barrier to you. So that was a really good lesson to start off with, to kind of know that this is going to be tough.
Was it as easy to do though as he said, or did you at times find that difficult?
Like any football career, yourself, you go through ups and downs, and
yeah,
there were certainly times early in my career where I felt I had to go the hard way, but at the end of the day, the mission was clear in my mind. It was to become number one for Denmark, and it was to be a Premier League goalkeeper. There was that was the dream. There was the upper dream, which I'd like to call it, was to be winning the Premier League, which again never seemed unrealistic to me because it was such a part of my youth, was seeing people around me winning everything. So it was never kind of an unrealistic thing, even though now looking back at it, Jesus, like it's incredible to win the Premier League. Watching Manchester City lift the title, knowing how difficult that is. But like I say, that was kind of that was always in the back of my mind, that was something that I wanted to, but I was also gonna achieve it.
Yeah, there was always that image, wasn't there, you playing in the tunnel?
That gets dragged up every now and then. Yeah,
regularly, doesn't it? Yeah, it's fabulous little images. But what was it like growing up around all these wonderful footballers that were at Manchester United, particularly?
First and foremost, it was normal. It was my life. Like, I didn't know any different. It's not till you grow older and you find out actually that's not normal. But the other word I'd use for it is inspirational. It set the bar high, really high. And it meant that I got to watch not just the games are one thing, but the behaviors and the habits of some of the best in the world, which for a young sponge-like mind was so it was inspirational. I absolutely loved it. Being around these players, you see how they act, you see how they train, you see how hard the intensity and the demands and the kind of ferocity, the real kind of anger sometimes and will to win was so it was so stark, and that in a way that sometimes did maybe even cause me problems in my early career, because that was what I saw. That's how you do it. So as a young guy coming in, being so aggressive sometimes, shouting and wanting it so much, because that was what I saw. That was what I saw the best in the world do. So I thought, well, coming in, that's exactly what I have to do. And sometimes, I think maybe the older players or coaches would kind of like, whoa, relax yourself, mate. You've done absolutely nothing in the game. But that was, I
suppose, also when you're about 11, 12, 13 years old and you're applying that kind of stuff from and you're playing with just kids, and I bet the parents on the touchline going, crikey, what we got here?
It's unusual, but that was my norm. That was every role model, not just my father, but those were the people I grew up with, the likes of Steve Bruce, the likes of Eric Cantona, and later, the Gary Nevilles, the Phil Neville, Beckham, Scholes, Keane, like all these guys, watching these guys and being lucky enough to go to training and see how they, just things like boxers, the desire to win and not lose in those boxes was, again, that was normal to me. But obviously taking that into other contexts and into other environments, that level of intensity isn't normal. And I understand that now growing older, but as a teenager, as a young pro, that would definitely have probably rubbed people up a little bit the wrong way, and sometimes need taking down a peg or two and cultivating and kind of molding and shaping. But it all came and all comes from a place of willingness to win, a desire to win, and that was the one thing that really was instilled in me, was that nothing else matters. It's only winning, and you do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah. How about the early days of your career? You were at Manchester City. You didn't, you were playing there for a bit, and then obviously Joe Hart came in. You moved out. You went on loan to a few clubs in the lower leagues. Then you ended up at Notts County. Did you start to doubt whether you'd make it to the very top?
No, I didn't. I always saw it as a step along the ladder. The thing is, growing up the way I did, I always thought that if I just work at that intensity, I'll get there. If I have that single-mindedness, that desire, and that will, I knew I had the talent, but I was always told that hard work beats talent. So I always thought to myself, if I can combine those two, then I've got a chance. And I was never going to let that not happen. And don't get me wrong, it was tough, because I ended up getting my Premier League debut quite early, and listen, I was young. I made mistakes, and that there was, I was raw. But I also got, kind of brutally removed from the position. And actually, from my last Premier League appearance for Manchester City to my next Premier League appearance, which was then with Leicester City, there was 8 years between. So I kind of feel like I've lost 8 years of my career that should have been spent in the Premier League, but wasn't. But then that goes back to what my dad always told me: it will be more difficult for you. And that was why I always thought I have to be playing. So I'd rather go on loan, I'd rather drop down to keep playing, to learn my craft, to get all these little mistakes, these little things, get them out of my game and get that experience. And a lot of times, it's changing slightly now, but a lot of times, particularly at that age, football was so different. It was played so differently than it was today. Back then, I wasn't tall enough, and I wasn't this, I wasn't that. Back then, it was about tall keepers commanding your box and kicking it as far, who could kick the furthest. But that was what you looked at in keepers. Whereas now it's obviously changed. And back then also, it was experience. No one wanted to give a 19, 20-year-old goalkeeper a chance, really, because you wanted someone, of 27, 28, 29. You wanted some experience in there. So for me, I was the way I saw it is I'm going to get experience now. I'm going to do my homework, go through whatever I need to go through, so that when that day arrives again, I'm going to be ready, and nothing's going to stop me. And when I then get my fingers or my claws back into the Premier League life, I ain't letting go.
You talked about being brutally rejected from Manchester City. How did that transpire? What happened?
Well, it came to the point. I was at the club, and listen, one thing I'll always be thankful for is the upbringing I got from Man City, because the academy staff there and then going into the first team was so good for me, and I'll always be grateful for that, because it gave me a real good solid foundation in football. But I got to the point where we'd had a lot of goalkeepers through the door, and we were at the time we had David James there. And I just signed a new contract where they kind of said to me that I was gonna, whenever David James decided he was moving on, or I'd be in with a shout. No one promised me that I was going to play or anything like that, but they said then you'll be in with a shout. So I went on loan, and I ended up at Bury, and the way they kind of structured it was really good for me, because Bury was a local club. So I would train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at Man City, and then Thursday, Friday at Bury, and then play on the Saturday. And that, so I got the best of both worlds in that sense. I had Tim Flowers as my goalkeeper coach, So great mentor for me to kind of work with on a daily basis, and then go and get those matches, that experience. And I remember my debut, we were playing against Shrewsbury away, and this big geezer at the other end called Joe Hart was playing, and I'd heard
Joe started.
he did. So that was my first kind of encounter with Joe. And I know Tim was in the crowd that day watching the game, but obviously found out it wasn't just me he was watching. But we ended up winning the game 1-0, which was nice. But I had heard little rumours about Joe coming in, but it got to the point where, okay, they're buying this guy now. He's obviously a really good goalkeeper as well, and now they've got two. I think we're only like 5 months apart in age, so what's kind of going on here? What's the plan? So obviously David James moved on, and they bought Andreas Isaksson, who came in, and they had Nicky Weaver as well, who came back from injury. So we had a good quartet of keepers there in my time at the start, and we got to the point where Joe had he'd got his debut before me in the Premier League, so I kind of knew the pecking order right, and again, there's no complaints. Joe was, I think, particularly at that time, he was probably ahead of me in many regards. But Joe was, like we said, the tall, commanding goalkeeper that was looked for in those days. And I had 1 year left of my contract, and I didn't want to sign a new one because I didn't want to get caught anymore. Like, I knew that Joe was probably going to be the one they were going to go for, and I thought, I'm not going to attach myself now for another 3 or 4 years or whatever. If the case is that they're going to be thinking about Joe, because I also had aspirations to play for Denmark. So Sven Eriksen comes in, and me and Joe, we're kind of thinking, okay, Sven coming in, Swedish. We've got the Swedish national team keeper. The writing's kind of on the wall for us here. It's not going to be any of us. But Andreas got injured. And then it was between me and Joe. And again, I wasn't really in a place where I thought, are they going to be looking at me? But Sven kind of kept it open, and we played a couple of pre-season games. I had a couple of good performances. And I think we were kind of neck and neck of who was going to start. And then a few days, I think the start of the week of the first game of the season, we were playing West Ham away. We were doing a warm-up where one of the coaches called, like, everyone get into threes or get into fours, and Joe jumped on me and caught his fingers on the back of my shirt and dislocated them. So
Are you sure that's how it happened?
I'm 100% sure. I'm 100% sure. But yeah. So that kind of put him out of training. But he came back and trained. But in my mind, I was like, right, surely now I must be edging in. And while all this is going on, I'm talking with the club about new contract, and I'm saying, to be honest, I'm good with what with the contract I'm on, because I had a year left. And then it got to the game, the night before the game, and Joe had trained fully, I'd trained fully, and I didn't really know what was going on. And the goalkeeper coach, Eric Steele, came to my room at the hotel and knocked on my door and just said, listen, do you know what's going on tomorrow? I'm like, please tell me, I have no idea. And he said, well, you're starting in the Premier League. Here we go, right. So I played the first game. We win 2-0. I keep a clean sheet on my debut. Everything's great. We play, I think it's Derby County at home, win 1-0, I think it is. Another clean sheet. Manchester Derby comes round. We win 1-0, another clean sheet. Play Arsenal away. I save a penalty from Robin van Persie, and Fabregas scores right. And you can speak to Mike about this because it's his fault. No, and Fabregas scores. Fabregas scores about 82 minutes or something along those lines. Yeah. And that's when I conceded my first goal. And I managed to play, I think, 3 more games. And in this period, I'm speaking with Man City, and I'm thinking, all right, well, okay, I'm playing in the Premier League, I'm keeping clean sheets, and everything's good. Sven's really trying to get me to stay. Sven's really pushing hard for me to stay. And in the end, they offered me a contract where they kind of said, right, this is what we think of you. And I looked at it, I was like, wow, okay, Jesus. Okay, they must believe in me then. And Sven said to me, like, trust me, we want you. So I had a lot of conversations with my dad, with the family, everything, like, well, this is an incredible offer, and I'm playing in the Premier League, so why not? Why not? So I signed the contract, and I think about 3 days later, I got dropped. 3 or 4 days later, wow. Yeah. So we're playing Newcastle at home, and Sven pulls me to the side in the hotel after dinner in the evening, and says, "I'm going to start Joe tomorrow." And it's like getting hit by a bus there. I was like, what?
Did you say anything?
Do you know? I was so in so much shock, and I was so young. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react. So I was like, right, okay. Just went back to my room, and my mind was frazzled. And I never started a Premier League game again for Man City. And listen, Joe went on and did what Joe did. Who's to say that I would have done the same? No idea. We'll never know.
Yeah. But can I ask you something about? I've always wondered about like goalkeepers, because you're a different set to the rest of us. You kind of train together, you warm up together. You do obviously
not so much anymore. But back in the day, yeah. Back in the day,
yeah. Back in the day, but you know what I mean. You even when you go to a match and watch the teams warm up, the goalkeepers do their little bit together, don't they? Yeah. That must be it's really unusual, because in the main squad, obviously, you might have a striker that's usually left out or stuff, but there's generally, you've got half a chance of getting it. With goalkeepers, it's a bit different, isn't it? Because they tend to choose just one of you for at least a while. It's very rare that they chop and change with goalkeepers. So it must be quite difficult. And that rivalry, it must sometimes affect friendships and stuff like that. But you do all seem to have that bond as well. It's a bizarre game within a game.
It is. Goalkeeping is the position of ultimate responsibility.
Absolutely.
So you have to accept that you are accountable for everything, and any mistake you make is going to cost your team, and it's going to make you look a certain way. I think for that reason, very few people understand what it is actually like to stand in that goal. The feelings you go through sometimes in a game, the mix of emotions is, unless you've stood there, you have no idea. You can speculate, you can think, but you have no idea what it feels like. For that reason, I think we have a very special mutual respect for each other, because we all know exactly what it's like to be the one who makes the last minute penalty save, the great save, the mistake, the one that costs your team, anything like we know how that feels. So that is a really, really, really tough job, which means that we can kind of respect each other in a different way. I feel that we'll have each other's backs, because on a human level, when you've cost your team, there's no worse feeling. It just doesn't get any worse than that. And that is why a lot of the times it doesn't work having two number ones. Like me and Joe in a long run wouldn't work, because we both had the mentality of number ones, but it never affected our friendship. We're still really close friends now. And that, again, that just comes from a mutual respect. At the end of the day, it's not his fault that I didn't play, or it's the manager that chooses. So it's up to us to push each other. Me and Joe, we pushed each other, but in a great way. Like, because we had two young guys who both wanted it more than anything, and we worked our nuts off. Like, we fucking studied everything. We had days where we'd watch, it was YouTube back then. There's not really all the scouting platforms that we have now, but we were watching, before training, we'd be watching Oliver Kahn videos or Casillas videos or whatever we were watching, and then we'd go out and we'd emulate it, we'd talk about it, we'd evolve, and we'd kind of help each other in that sense. And at the end of the day, best man gets picked, and it's the manager that picks. But it never affected the friendship. And you're not going to be friends with every keeper you've played with, but there's always a mutual respect. I feel it's very very rare. I've experienced where the pecking order hasn't been set, where there hasn't been a mutual respect, because that's also very necessary when you're working in such tight units. It makes the working environment more productive when there is a very set order. When those lines become blurred, then it becomes difficult and it becomes counterproductive in the working environment, and it becomes uncomfortable for the number 3, number 4, the goalie coach, that they have to constantly be judging one person's angry and one person's happy, two massively contrasting emotions. So I think that's why we get on, because there is that mutual respect.
Yeah, absolutely. You're about to go to Leicester very shortly, which I want to spend a little bit of time on, as you would understand, Kasper. The highlight of, highlight of my life, actually, Leicester winning the league, and I wasn't even part of it, but as a fan I was. But Kasper, you weren't desperately, motivated to go to Leicester, were you, originally?
No, I was.
You were?
There's a but. As soon as Sven called me, I wanted it straight away. Like I didn't enjoy my time at Leeds, which is a shame because it's an incredible club and the potential. What
was wrong there?
I think it was just the timing, wrong time, wrong place, wrong person. I was probably very immature in my way of being, and I felt at the time, some of the things that were said about my dad was very disrespectful. And now I understand the rivalry is there, but it didn't endear me.
Because the Leeds Manchester United, for those that perhaps don't understand.
It didn't, when you're calling my dad certain names, it's not going to endear me, regardless if you're saying I'm all right. They used to sing a chant. I won't repeat the word. It's your dad's something, but you're all right. And I'm now older. I get the banter of it, but it's still, you're calling my dad something that, that's never going to sit well with me. That's just never going to sit well with me. So we had a decent season. We finished just outside the playoffs, and I got blamed by the manager for conceding too many goals, where the fact was I was injured for 2 months, and in those games I think we lost 7-4 to Preston, we lost a 6-0, we lost a 5-0, and I actually didn't concede that many goals, and I had a decent season. I didn't have a great season, but I had a decent season. But I'd come through a load of loans. I'd been to Notts County, then to Leeds, and then Leicester calls, and I wanted to go because it was Sven, it was Leicester.
Well, you say it was Sven, but this is the same guy that put you in and then took you out, so that didn't bother you.
Well, the same guy also brought me to Notts County. Yeah.
It's Notts County, true.
And we'd had some discussions after that, and everything was cleared. And it's football. It is what it is sometimes.
Yeah. Let me ask you briefly about Sven as a human being, because obviously he's going through illness at the moment and just really sad. What was he like as a human being and a coach?
As a human being, you're not going to find a nicer person in the world. He would honestly, as a coach, he would make you feel on top of the world. He was the first coach ever to call me world class. That was the phrase he used. He said to me in his office, in terms of speed and agility on the line, you are world class. And at that age, hearing that from a guy like him, when I thought back to the teams he's managed, the goalkeepers he's had, to call me world class after I played 2 games in the Premier League, wow! The confidence that gave me, it was sky high. And tactically, he was very good. He was a very, very good manager. I feel maybe he doesn't get the respect he deserves. I think the unfortunate thing about becoming ill like he has is that now actually people are realizing what a good coach he was, and even more importantly, what a good person he was. And it was was lovely to see the what Liverpool did for him. Like I had tears in my eyes watching it. It was incredible, and I'm glad that he's still here, and I'm glad that he's now receiving the adulation that he deserves for what is an incredible career. And yeah, he's been massively important and a massive figure in my career as well.
And you were telling us how he got you.
Yeah, so obviously he rang me and said he wanted me to come to Leicester about the project, and I'd obviously followed it because I knew Sven had gone there, and I wanted to go, but the people around me, my agent and even my dad to a certain extent was trying to say, listen, you need some continuity in your career. You've been at too many clubs for someone your age. You keep moving every season. You're moving. You need to you need to commit to something now. You need to stick with it. So what happens is I went back to Denmark on holiday, and I'm driving up to my dad's house, and my phone rings, and my friend comes on the speaker and says, congratulations. Why didn't you say anything? I'm like, you what? Said, you've gone to Leicester. Said, what? What do you mean I've gone to Leicester? Said, well, I'm watching Sky Sports. It's on Sky Sports. It says you've gone to Leicester.
Must be true then.
No idea where that's like. I knew Leicester were interested, but I knew nothing else about it. So I'm driving up to my dad's, and I get to my dad's, and I'm trying to ring. First, I'm trying to ring the manager, I'm trying to ring the club secretary, I'm trying to ring the goalie coach, I'm trying to ring anyone at Leeds to get hold of them to say, what's going on? No one's answering their phones. And at this point, this was back in the day when I was young, and I used to read Twitter and all these other things, and I was getting so much abuse for it. And I, in hindsight, probably shouldn't have done it, but I put out a statement and said, hang on, I haven't asked to leave. This is the club's doing. This has got nothing to do with me, which is why you probably think that I didn't want to go. But I had this in my head that I have to stay somewhere. But once that happened, it was an excuse for me. Yes, right, now I can go. And I ended up receiving a call from the manager who said that he thought it was a good deal for the club, and I'd conceded too many goals that season. It was good for me, and I ended up receiving another call from the chairman saying that basically I accept the deal or I'm back in the under 18s kind of thing. So
one of those,
so that was kind of,
people always forget that about footballers, don't they? They always go, when a footballer wants to leave, all the fans go, but when a club wants you out,
listen,
ruthless.
I think that's very much how the narrative is the players have all the power. It's not always true, because that would have put a big dent in my career had I ended up back in the under 18s. Anyways, I went to Leicester, and the rest is history, as they say. And no, I was.
That's another podcast.
But that's another podcast. But but no, the fact of the matter is, having the first time I spoke to Sven, I was buzzing. I wanted to go. I was desperate to go.
It took a while for things to happen at Leicester, didn't it? Obviously, had to get back into the top flight and stuff like that. How were the early days?
For me, they were great. I loved it. Like, from the day I stepped in the door, I was home. I don't know why. It just was. And it was my club. It still is my club. And I'd had this nomadic career, been lots and lots of places, loved so much of it. But now I was home. I had this feeling that this was going to be my club. First season, very up and down season for us. But for me personally, I got voted player of the season. I had a good season. And then we said we knew we were going to be competitive. And we obviously went through the playoff experience. And then we came back the season after, and you could tell from day one in pre-season we were getting promoted, because we were not going to let that happen again. That feeling we had after that game, that never again.
That was the Watford
Watford game.
Yeah.
So
That remarkable last minute when you got a penalty and they got up the other end with Troy Deeney and all that stuff.
So there was a steeliness, there was a desire that we are not going to end up in that situation again. And we to be fair, we blitzed the league. We absolutely blitzed that league, and that was the goal. That was the goal.
The first time back in the Premier League, it was a tough season. I mean, it was a miraculous. Actually, I think we're well behind with about 7 games to go, and had this remarkable run at the end of the season, which was a kind of precursor for what might happen the following year.
Well, I think the thing about getting promoted, we got promoted playing a certain style, and you go to the Premier League, and there are things you do have to change sometimes. But
what was Nigel Pearson's style?
Well, Nigel was all action. You know, we went for every single game. We weren't going to defend the games, and we were going to go and win. We were going to go and batter teams, and that's what we did in the Championship. Obviously, going to the Premier League, you can't just go and do that. And I think, you know, we maybe saw that with Burnley this year. You have to respect the fact that the Premier League is different to the Championship. Championship, you might get away with a couple of errors in games. The Premier League, they'd punish you. And we learned that. We learned that experience. They punish you. For me personally, I feel I had a decent start to the season. And then come, I think it was end of January, start of February, I'd had a really sore foot for 2 months, and it was like I couldn't really walk on it. And looking back, I know what it was now. It was a stress fracture. But we were training for Manchester City at home, and I came out in a 1-on-1 with Andy King, and he's hit the ball at my chest, and as I've put my foot down, my foot's just given way, and Kingy thought it was him that had done, like he'd hit me something, but I heard and felt my foot snap, and the bone broke, and I was out, and we had a difficult spell. You know, I think it was 18 games we didn't win, and I was on the sidelines now, and I'd waited so long to get back to the Premier League, to then get injured. I'd never broken anything before, so having to wait for this was horrible. And watching from the sidelines as we were at the bottom of the table in the end, and Nigel brought in Mark Schwarzer for some experience, and Mark came in, did well, but it was difficult because we weren't a free scoring side, so you know that always makes it difficult. But I got fit again with, I think it was 11 games to go, or 12 games to go. I think it was 12 games to go, and we're playing Hull at home. I expected to go straight back in, and Nigel called me in the office to tell me I wasn't playing, that Mark was playing, and honestly, I was beyond gutted. Like I physically felt sick, because I thought,
you angry?
I was angry. I was disappointed, but it was more about the situation. Like that now, I've finally got fit. I can finally contribute again. To then not be allowed to, and you know, I only ever sat on the bench twice for Leicester, and those 2 times still hurt me, and that one particularly hurt. We ended up drawing 0-0 with Hull, and Mark had a good game. So I obviously thought, well, I'm not getting in. But Nigel knew I was disappointed. He's not daft. He knew I was disappointed, and we were playing Tottenham away, and at this point, 11 games to go, I think it is, and I'm trying to get an indication of what's going on here. And honestly, I'm not someone who gets nervous really, but the nerves going into the final meeting where I knew he was going to select the team, I was shaking.
So you're actually basically more nervous about whether you're going to be in the team than you are actually when you're playing.
Yeah, like for me, there's nothing worse than not playing. It's the worst feeling in the world, because you can't, you feel helpless. You're totally helpless. You can't do anything. You can't. Yeah. You can talk to people. You can be a good teammate and all that, but you can't actually do the job that you know you can do. But anyway, he kind of, I don't know why he did it. He kind of dragged it out in the meeting about the starting lineup, and then he put the starting lineup on, and I was in, and then he turned around to me and said, "You've been moody all week. You better perform now." I was like, yeah, okay. And
I wonder if Mark Schwarzer was angry.
He must have been. He must have been. No, but and he would be in his full right to be. Anyway, we get to the game. We lose 3-2, but we have a good go of it, and I have a decent game. And to be fair, Nigel came up to me after the game and said, he shook my hand and said, "Right, done," and that was it. And we never ever had any issues. Like, that was the only.
And stayed up.
And we stayed up, yeah. And that was the thing. We were 10 points off safety with 10 games to go. And then I think it's 7 wins, 2 draws and a defeat, I think it was. Only losing to Chelsea. But it came to a point where we had a chat about it, like the players and the staff, and saying, well, listen, we're down anyway. No one's going to expect us to. So let's go down fighting. The way we did in the Championship, hell for leather, give everything. We're not going to try and play a system that's complicated. And there were some big turning points in the sense that we went to a 3 at the back. Robert Huth had come in, and we had Wes Morgan, Robert Huth, Marcin Vasilevsky at the back. As a key for that's nice. That's really nice. That's really enjoyable. And you had Cambiasso sitting in front. You had Jeff Schlupp on the wing back position, Mark Albrighton on the right wing back, and Vard started scoring, Nugent, and all these things just started clicking. We got one result, then we got the next result, and then all of a sudden you're on a roll. You've built momentum. You've unlocked the key to how do you win a game in the Premier League? And we finished 14th, I think it was. Like we were well clear. But that was the key to next season.
Yeah. Well, it was half the key, but also, of course, Nigel Pearson lost his job in the summer, not for football reasons. There was altercations, weren't they, in Thailand or something, and there was a bit of a scandal. And they brought in a certain Claudio Ranieri. And tell us about him.
Yeah, Claudio was obviously very different. And coming in to pre-season without Nigel was strange. Like this was Nigel's club. This is what he'd built.
Were the players choked for Nigel Pearson?
Yeah, they were gutted. Yeah. Absolutely gutted.
Yeah,
because he was a good manager, and again, probably someone who doesn't get the respect he deserves sometimes, because he was a really good manager. I think Nigel's downfall was his honesty. He didn't like things like the press conferences and stuff like that. He just didn't enjoy that part of it. He loved being a coach. He loved being a manager. He loved managing people. And maybe he didn't play that game so well, and that sometimes maybe contributes to the fact that people don't maybe regard him in what I regard him in, because
this is a totally unfair question, probably. But do you think if Nigel Pearson had still been manager, the crazy miracle season could have happened the same way?
It's what I would call a headline question, because whatever I say now will be the headline to.
It's very much a hypothetical.
But whatever I say now will be the headline of this podcast. So I'll go back to my previous answer. We found the key, and we built momentum. Once you build momentum, it's very difficult to stop. And it's also negatively, like once you lose, it's very difficult to turn. But we had momentum. And what Claudio did, he implemented some defensive principles that helped us eventually become solid, because we weren't solid in the first bit. We didn't keep a clean sheet for the first 10 games. But we found a different type of identity in the way that we played, and
Kante came in.
You're playing with an extra player already there. You're playing with 12 players if you've got N'Golo. But obviously, from what I know, both Christian Fuchs and N'Golo were Nigel's signings. They were coming in with anyway. It was Steve Walsh who obviously stayed on. But yeah, N'Golo, wow, he was incredible. But we had a formula now, and we had a structure, and we had a way of playing that suited every player in that. And what you then also had, you had an endlessly motivated squad, and that's dangerous for anyone.
Yeah, you mentioned there. Well, we both mentioned N'Golo Kante. He came in. You must have looked at him and thought, "Goodness, what have we got here?" I mean, he cost next to nothing.
Yeah, I think.
Was it immediately obvious or not?
There were
really?
little snippets to start with where you thought, "Whoa, okay." But the problem was, he didn't really play that position to start off with. If you remember, I think away at Stoke, he came on at left wing and he kind of put around a bit. It wasn't until he kind of got put in that position. But I can tell you in training, my goodness, sometimes you were in awe because you could just tell this guy's different. His engine, you just never stopped smiling, won the ball off everyone and read the ball, read every pass. It was just, like I say, it was like having an extra man on the field.
The other two players I'd like you to give us a little bit of an insight on.
Let me guess.
Go on.
Well, Riyad and Vards.
You've got it.
You've
got it.
Yeah.
Who else?
Yeah.
You should start with Mahrez. What a talent. What a discovery. What a signing.
Well, Steve Walsh had this knack of doing that. He in the Championship, he found Anthony Knockaert, who was incredible for us in the Championship. And then he brings in this skinny little geezer from Le Havre. And I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, wow, this is the Championship. Those legs, those skinny legs, and that, oh my God, these, you're coming up against people, you're coming up against people like Wes Morgan here, and then you saw him in training and you're like, oh wow, okay, this is interesting. And you're like, nah, this surely this guy, there's got to be something wrong with this guy because surely someone else would have seen this before. And wow, you just, sometimes you see people that are just genuinely world class, and N'Golo was one of them, and Riyad was one of them. He was an outrageous footballer. His ability with the ball, his touch was just ridiculous. And I know in training, defenders, they hated playing against him because he could make them look foolish. But I know they also loved it because they thought, if I can deal with Riyad in training, I ain't going to come up against much better. And his ability to change games and just do magic it's one of the best things I've ever seen. And in the team, again, we talk about the momentum and the structure. He was allowed that because Riyad didn't defend. Not for Leicester. He learned it at Man City. Pep made him defend. That's why he is a genuinely world-class player, because he also learned that at Man City. But with us, Danny Simpson was doing two man's job there because Riyad used to stand up on that little half position, and every time I got the ball, look for Riyad, look for Vards. Those were the two instructions, and they would combine. They'd create magic. They were just on the same wavelength.
Jamie Vardy, absolute hero at Leicester. Obviously, he scored so many goals. He went on that incredible run during that season.
He did,
where he broke the record for consecutive games and scoring goals. And we all know what he's like as a player, but what a character as well. People always say, don't they, there's no characters in the game these days, but that's because mostly you don't find out about the characters until they've retired, and then you hear all the stories. But with Vardy, you already know that.
Yeah, character, real character. I think Vards is one of these. I don't think people understand how professional he actually is. He also plays into the. I think he really enjoys being that pantomime villain as well, and the whole Jamie Vardy's having a party. But he's actually quite a professional guy, And you don't play at 37 as a striker and still score goals without actually being a really thoroughly professional guy. And again, something that people probably don't really realize about him is he does his homework as well. Like he doesn't just put his boots on and just go out and do it. You know, he studies the game. He knows the game. Knows how to take care of himself. It's not just something that just come to him. He's had to work for it. We all know his previous story, but also to then step it up a level and become a goal machine in the Premier League. That doesn't just happen without a lot of prior hard work. So you know, he's a top class striker. What else can I say?
Oh, absolutely,
he's a world class striker, a Leicester legend. I can't really say anything bigger than that. That's exactly what he is.
Yeah, totally agree. When did you think? I think most of us supporters thought when maybe after we won at Manchester City away 3-1. That's the one where people thought maybe. I still thought it can't surely happen. When did you as players or you as a person think this is possible, this is on?
Swansea away, 3-0.
Swansea
away, top at Christmas.
Yeah, as early as that.
Yeah, because I think it was something like 19 out of 22 that has been top at Christmas went on to become champions.
But there'd never been a team like Leicester at the top at Christmas, and if they had, they would.
But we were good.
You know,
we were good.
Absolutely, you were good.
So
but, yeah.
We went on our Christmas do from Swansea, and so we got on a plane straight after the game, and I remember some of the conversations on that plane. Like it was like, lads, we're going to do this. Like, make no mistake about this. We're going to have a great Christmas do here because we're going to go and do this. And yeah, everyone always goes back because that was the really visible one was City away because Man City are Man City. But it was a kind of a statement win. It was 3-1, but they didn't score till the 96th minute or something like that. Like we were good. We were dominant, but not in terms of possession but the way we dominated game was by controlling the opposition's access, and they didn't really. I had 2 saves in the whole game. I had a save from a corner, a set piece. It wasn't like they carved us open. So in that sense, we felt like we were controlling the game. And that's the one that everyone will always go back to because that was the really visible one. But yeah, I already started at Swansea thinking, yeah, this is going to be it. This is going to be our season.
Do you understand as the players during that the fact that this would be seen as the most miraculous win? I think of any team sport in any sport ever.
Yes and no.
You were nearly relegated the previous season. You were rallied. You changed managers. It's Leicester City. They'd never won the top flight league in ever. And everyone knows now how dominant the top clubs generally are in football. How difficult it is for a smaller club like Leicester to break into the league. Did you not comprehend what was actually happening and the significance of it all?
I don't think so. I think you're so much just in the flow, and again, I go back to the word momentum. When you're in that cycle, games just come thick and fast, and you're just churning it out. Like I look back at some of the results, and they're 1-0 wins. You know how difficult those are. Like grinding out 1-0 wins away from home.
I remember down the stretch, particularly those last. It was like I remember because most of the games were shifted to Sunday, so I wasn't working on Match of the Day, so I could sit watching at home with my boys, 3 of which support Leicester as well. My God, they were so tense. Yeah. It was so tense.
But that's the thing, they were so close, those games, and they could easily go the other way. But when you're in that flow, in that momentum, the belief is so high. And again, you got to remember one thing. We had nothing to lose. Like, no one expected us to do it. So
until near the end.
Until near the end, maybe.
You've got something very special to
Of course, but even if I know it's never going to be the same finishing second, but still, wow, what a season that would have been. So in that sense, we didn't have anything to lose. And what I love so much about the story, and that's something again that comes now, as it becomes a little bit later in the day, is the sub stories. Like we go through each member of the team, what they've been through to be there at that moment, the rejections and all the little different stories of why we all ended up together.
Seems rude to call you a bunch of misfits.
Well, not misfits, but if you want to trace a path, if you want to trace a path to success, you have to start with failure. And you look around that team, the amount of times we'd all failed. But failure makes you endlessly motivated, or it breaks you. One or the other. And we had a group here where we were all endlessly motivated. No one was broken from past failures. So when you have that, and you have that belief in yourself, and on top of that, you found the key to winning games. It was and it is an unstoppable force.
Yeah. Did you have the sense that almost the entire football world was with you?
Yeah, we did. It was an incredible ride, and still is to this day, because it captivated the mind of the world, because it was so unusual. And the thing is, when you become a Premier League player, your life changes. And that's nothing to do with money or anything like that, but your life changes because now you are seen by everyone in the world. Everyone watches the Premier League. So you're seen by everyone in the world. So now when you go on holiday, people know who you are. Whereas if you're a Championship player, they might have seen a game or two. But if you're a Premier League player, people know who you are everywhere you go on the planet, practically. But now you're a Premier League winner. Your life changes forever, because now you've done that. That's never going to change. And the way we did it captivated everyone's imagination, because it was the essence of sport, that a team without the resources, can actually do it. So in that sense, yeah, I felt it everywhere I went. Every time I went to the petrol station to fill my car up, the guy or girl behind the counter, they were buzzing for it. Every time you took a trip, everywhere in the world, everyone was, oh my God, I hope you do it. I hope you do it. We watch every game. And again, that just helps add to that belief. Yeah.
Describe your emotions when it was done, when you were watching that game. Obviously, it wasn't Leicester playing when the league was decided. Tottenham had to win at Stamford Bridge. Eden Hazard bends that one in the top corner to make it 2-2. And you were all at Jamie Vardy's house, weren't you?
I wasn't there.
You weren't?
I wasn't there, no.
Well, you're a goalkeeper, of course you weren't.
No, we weren't all there. I ended up there. Don't get me wrong, I ended up there. No,
right, yeah.
Again, I didn't...
Tell us what went through your mind. Tell us your feelings, if you can possibly describe that moment.
I didn't want... Again, we didn't know that we were going to become champions that night, and I didn't want to tempt fate. And also, I didn't want to watch the game, because I didn't want to watch the game. I never watched any of the Tottenham games. I did right at the beginning, and I just felt I was too emotionally invested. It was too stressful to watch the games, and I had no control. So I thought no. So I did mad stuff, like they were playing Stoke away. I used to go to the cinema and leave my phone in the car and just sit there watching a film, and then go out and then watch the result. Okay. And obviously, I think they won 4-0. But I didn't want to live through the 90 minutes of heartache and all this, because we had a game the next week to win if Tottenham had won. But I also felt that I wanted to be with my family. If this was to be the moment, I wanted to be with them, because I was with the team and all that. But this was the journey from League Two all the way. They'd been there the whole way. If it was to be, I wanted to be with them, because they had sacrificed just as much as me, and they have lived through all the highs and lows themselves, all the children's birthdays I've missed, all the different things that you can't be a part of. That's their sacrifice, and if that moment was to come, I wanted to be with them. That was my feeling, because I could always.
With your dad?
My dad wasn't there. No, my dad wasn't there. No, he wasn't there at the time, but there's a lot of others.
I know what it meant to him. I was at Manchester, the Old Trafford game, just a few games that we got a 1-1 draw.
That was the night before.
That
was the night before.
Yeah. And I was with him, and we sat next to each other, actually, more or less.
I was actually still gutted that we didn't win it at Old Trafford.
He was nervous, He was bloody nervous.
But when you don't have when you don't have control or any influence, that's when the nerves come in.
Oh, it's worse.
It's much worse.
Way worse than
Which is why I didn't want to watch the Tottenham game. But what happened was we ended up going for dinner. I was a nervous wreck because I knew this game was going on, and every person in the restaurant was peeking over, and every waiter was and I was like, I'd left my phone out. I said to my friend, I don't want to know anything. I want to rip the plaster off. If it happens, it's happened. Great, then we celebrate. But I don't want to know during the process. Anyway, It ended up, someone at another table went, have you seen the 2-0 up? I'm like, oh, bloody hell, Jesus. It's like, fuck yeah. Anyway, we ended up going home.
Probably a Forest fan.
Yeah, I don't know. But I ended up going home, and I thought, right, I'll put the kids to bed. And my son wouldn't sleep. And my wife came in and said to me, listen, it's 2-0, there's 15 minutes to go. I may as well watch it now. There's nothing to lose anyway. So my son wouldn't sleep, and he sat on my lap, my son, and fell asleep in quite quick. So I'm sat there watching, and Gary Cahill scores the first. I'm like, okay. Oh, this is not nice. And then the Leicester legend Eden Hazard, he scores that goal, and I'm sat with my son in my arms like, right, someone take him, please. Someone just. And then the last few minutes was torture. Was absolute torture. And they got a free kick, if you remember.
I remember
right in front,
every
and
minute
where I think it was Willian should have shot.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 2-2. He should have had a shot to try and win Chelsea the game, and he passed it to Hazard in the corner, and the relief there that he did that, and then obviously the whistle goes, and it's your whole life vindicated in 1 second. Everything was worth it. Every single moment, every single sacrifice, every injury, every day you stayed extra, all the things that you've done to get to that point is now vindicated. This is why. Firstly, the feeling was relief, and then that was overtaken by pure joy. Just pure joy of, wow, we've done it. So I celebrated for an hour or two with my family, and then I drove to Jamie's, and then we celebrated for 6 weeks.
Quite rightly so. I remember watching the game, which I'd cry my eyes out. I don't mind admitting it. It was just so joyous, so beautiful.
That was incredible.
Watching it with my lads as well, it was something to behold. Claudio, he handled the whole thing so beautifully. I think he added to the likability side of Leicester during that kind of made and encapsulated the whole feeling towards the club.
Yeah, I think Claudio was very, very clever in the way he handled the whole situation in terms of not putting pressure. It was 40 points, that was it, and he handled the media side of it really, really well. I think the media really took to him as well. His personality and the way he kind of, I think they really looked forward to his press conferences. They always seem to get some good quotes and things like that out of them. So in that sense, he was he handled that really, really well.
Yeah. Going forward, it was a different story. It was always going to be a different story the following season. But I just want to talk about you and you playing in the Champions League with Leicester. You had those amazing penalty saves against Sevilla. Your penalty saving record is remarkably good. Even going back to obviously the Euros, the semi-final, where you actually saved Harry Kane's penalty. Not too many keepers have done that, and that must have been a real sickener when it bounced out
It was.
Not necessarily for us English.
It was.
For you. Yeah, because you must have thought for a second, God, I've saved it.
Yeah. This is the life of a keeper. This is why we are different, because you have to live with that. And I think probably 10 centimeters further to the left, I have an opportunity to push it wide, whereas because it was kind of under me, I could only block. And then you're at the mercy of the gods and hope that it bounces somewhere or someone gets a toe in or something like that, but it wasn't to be. But I
want to take you.
Sorry,
Your penalty saving ability is it's up there, isn't it? I mean, you must be proud of that. That's down to purely your agility and your reading of things, is it? What is the secret? Perhaps to young keepers, what would you say? How do you, what's the key? I mean, even when you lost it a couple of years ago in the knockout, in the penalty shootout, I think you saved 2 and
I saved
they missed 3 at the other end.
Yeah, no, I saved one in extra time and 2 in the shootout.
Absolutely,
and still lost. No, one day I will let on what I do.
Oh yes, of course. You can't give that. Stupid me for even thinking.
Yeah,
that.
one day I'll say I'll come out with my process, but while I'm still active, I'm going to keep that to myself.
Very wise. Very, very wise.
Yeah, particularly with the Euros coming up. So there are things and there are ways and there are ways of doing things that can help, and I will divulge those things one day when I retire in many years.
On a future pod, we'll do it in a few years' time. I'm sure you've got plenty of life in you. Yeah, looking ahead now to the Euros. Actually, I want to go back. There's something I've omitted that's really, really important. Obviously, the owners of Leicester were a key part of the success, and that kind of togetherness that the players seem to have with the owners. And you were there very close to the scene on the day, obviously, when Vichai was, the helicopter crash. That must have been so dreadfully difficult to live through. Yeah,
it was horrible. I was there. I was practically could touch the helicopter at one point. When it was on its side on fire, it was it's unfortunately one of those things that will live with me forever. Everyone obviously knows that was a frequent mode of transport for him. And a lot of the times he would come to the dressing room after the game and you'd be having chats, and then he'd leave, and a few of the players would sometimes go on the pitch. If you had guests or if you had family, they like to see the helicopter or something, so you'd go and you'd follow him out to the helicopter and wave him off. And that day it was me, my brother, my wife's husband and his dad that were there, and we were waving him off. And I was stood talking to one of the staff members, one of his assistants, as they were taking off, and we were looking at it, and they kind of went up and went out to the side and hovered, which was unusual. And I remember we were kind of looking at each other, thinking that doesn't look normal. That's not what they usually do. And then the helicopter started spinning, like out of control, and you'd think, you're just thinking this is not real. This just isn't real, and it starts tumbling towards the ground, spinning like that. To start off with, I think people that were watching thought it was doing some kind of trick or some kind of maneuver or something like that, because it was so drastic the way it was doing it. And I remember running out of the ground around the corner. As I'm coming around the corner, I hear like a really loud metallic thud of this landing, and I can't see anything yet because I'm only at the first corner. I'm running out like shouting, and all the fans. So you
basically gone from the pitch because you see what was happening.
I ran down the tunnel, and as I've come just out of the tunnel on the other side to the car park, there's fans there and everything. I'm sprinting across and I hear it, and I'm trying to get to the corner of the stadium where I can see round the stadium. And as I've come round the corner, I see the flames, and I'm sprinting towards this, down this little embankment, and kind of get really right up to it, and having this really vivid moment that will live with me forever, of looking at this wreckage and this fire, feeling the heat of it was like searing heat, and thinking there is no way anyone can survive this.
And you knew he was on the helicopter, because it took a long time for that news to come out that evening. I was doing Match of the Day.
I'd literally seen him 20 seconds before I'd seen him, and at that point, I remember having a really strange moment of clarity where I thought about my own kids, where I remember thinking, I want to try and get into this helicopter to do something, but knowing that some kind of logic took over in my head, and no one's surviving this. And if this thing blows up here, my kids are going to be without a dad. And at that second, a hand grabbed me from behind and pulled me away. And it was Jay, one of our security guards that had seen and followed me. And he pulled me away, and because we didn't know what, if this thing was going to blow up or whatever, but I remember he pulled me away, got me away from the embankment up onto the car park, and I just went to my knees and just like that's when the realization sunk in of, that's it. Everyone in there, there's no one coming out of that. And obviously then all the chaos ensued and police and fire engines and medical and all sorts of stuff. And kind of everything is a blur after that. I was the last player there at the stadium. And a lot of the players knew that I used to sort of chat to the chairman after games and stuff like that. And then obviously the news started coming through, and I'm getting text messages, and our club group chat is going like, what's happening? Kasper, are you there? What have you seen? Did you see anything? Blah, blah, all this kind of stuff. And that was just a horrible, horrible day.
Absolute tragedy. Really terrible tragedy. What you had to kind of deal with that. What did he bring to Leicester City Football Club? And obviously his family, and his Top's still in charge now, his son.
Well, he brought belief. He had this insane belief in success that was so infectious. I always go back to the first kind of meeting. He said to me, "We'll be in the Championship within in the Champions League within 6 years." And here's me, 24 years old. I've heard this tune before at Notts County, that we're gonna, all the money, we're gonna go up. And I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, he looked at me and said, "No, we're gonna be in the Champions League in 6 years." And I don't know what it was, but there was just something about it that made me think, he's fucking serious, this guy. He's not messing around. And you saw the money he was putting into things, and I thought, at this time we were in the Championship, by the way. I think it's 6 years. Okay. Okay, if that happens, great, happy days. But he brought this belief, and he taught me, he taught everybody, I think, that never ever limit your dreams. Like, never put a limit on it. And he also taught us to be good people, because through my life as a footballer, you meet a lot of people, and you meet very, very wealthy people. And when you are at a level of wealth where you are a billionaire, you don't hear the word no that often. And you're not very often told that you're wrong. But that can kind of maybe distort your reality a little bit, and that can maybe make you a little bit maybe not so nice a person. But here's a guy who never hears the word no either, but the respect and humility he treated everybody with. He made, a little bit like Sven, he made everybody feel great. And that didn't matter what your role was within the club. He made you feel important. And he made me as a young player, I think a lot of the other youngsters as well, realize that for a massive piece of machinery like a football club to work and have success, every little cog has to be spinning well. That means everyone here is important. Whether you are the kit man or the top scorer or the chef or the bus driver, you have a role to play. And if you do that to the best of your ability, that's how we all become better. And I think you see it when you see old videos of him coming to games. The way he walks around effortlessly, greeting everyone, every member of staff, every fan. This was not to do with money. This was about a passion. This was about love. He loved that club, and his family loved that club. And all credit goes to the entire family and to Top, that this could be an incredibly painful memory to have to go back to that stadium again. But they chose not to see it like that. They knew how much their dad loved it and how much it meant to it, and it would mean the world to him to see it flourish and see it being part of the family still.
Yeah. Kasper, you've been incredibly generous with your time, but I'd like to spend a few minutes now talking about Denmark and a little bit of the past, but looking forward as well to the Euros, if we may. 100 caps, that's the first thing. You've got that now. What an achievement. What a great achievement. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What have been the highlights?
Oh, wow. There's been so many. There is not anything more special to me in professional football than wearing the number one shirt for your country, because that is the ultimate badge of honor, is to wear the number one shirt for your country. There's nothing that's for me pure football, because that's about your country. That's not about career furtherment or money or anything like that. That's simply about being the best in your country. And to have been able to do that for 100 caps is a massive achievement for me. It's something I'm really, really proud of. But it's also just another step along the way. And there's been so many highlights, and I think it's difficult to understand or to explain to someone who's not Danish what it means. And I think every country will have something similar. But I do feel, having played in different countries, I've never come across players that love being away with their country as much as we do. A lot of times I hear like friendly games are meaningless and it's a long time away from family and all that. And it is. But nothing is meaningless when it comes to this squad. I've never seen anyone have to leave the squad with an injury or anything like that. Everyone wants to stay. Even if you're injured, no one's trying to go back to home. Everyone's trying to cling on for one more day. They want one more day. And that, for me, is the ultimate in football culture. If you've got a team where injured players are clamouring just to stay with the team for one more day, then you're doing something, and then it means something. And that togetherness that we have as a team, as a country, is everything I've ever dreamed of. And the young Kasper, the young romantic thinking football Kasper, that's what I always dreamt of being a part of. Yeah. And having been a part of it for 11 years now and still being a part of it makes me incredibly proud.
Yeah, you talked about one more day, and obviously you lived through an experience of a football pitch where a player might not get one more day. Christian Eriksen, you know what I'm talking about, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've been through a few things around football, Kasper, and I was broadcasting that day as well, and I mean, like the whole world stood still. It was an extraordinary experience, but to be right there on the pitch. Describe what you went through and how you felt that day.
Yeah, that was another one in the list of horrible experiences. And we were actually going through something different as well at the time as a team. Our goalkeeper coach, who at the time was going through pancreatic cancer and sadly lost his battle to that just after the Euros. And he was very close to Christian. They're from the same town. And so we as a team were already coming to terms with the fact that Lars's name was at a terminal stage.
Yeah.
And we actually didn't have because of the COVID, Euros had been pushed a year. None of us knew whether he'd be there for that. And he was. So we as a team were already kind of like, we already had, our hearts kind of, he was kind of the heartbeat of the team in a way, the goalkeeper coach. And then for what happened with Christian, I remember the sequence of events to start off with where he fell and thinking, that looks wrong. That just looks wrong. And I was obviously the furthest away. And Simon was the first to kind of react to that and started sprinting up. As soon as Simon started sprinting, I went. And I'd always, through the Premier League, we always go through like the first aid protocols and head trauma protocols, all these kind of things. And what they always tell us is don't crowd. Get away, like let the professionals do the work. So I remember running over, and because there was a lot of us and the physios were coming in at the same time, I was like, get away, like let them work now. And everyone kind of went away, and then it was like, shit, what is happening here? And you're looking at Christian, and you just know, shit, this is bad. This is this is one of the worst things you can ever see. And again, another image that'll just always stay in your mind. And those minutes seemed like fucking hours. And again, helplessness, just utter helplessness. And at one point, I remember standing there and I'm looking for Christian's wife, because I know she sat near mine. And I know that even though we were trying to, because it was quite graphic what was going on there, we wanted to shield that. But the way the stadium is, the stadiums are very tall, and they could look straight down to what was going on. And I'm trying to look for his wife to see where is she. Like, I'm trying to think, if that was me, I wouldn't want anyone seeing that. There's this now. I can sit back with this feeling, and I can now look back and see how our doctors did what they did. Like they are absolute rock stars. The way that they did that, and at one point I remember I was stood next to Martin Braithwaite, and he was in tears, and this kind of disbelief. He just said, he's gone. He's not there. And I was saying to him, like, come on, no, come on. He's still here. Come on, we've got to believe it. And that's when I caught out of the corner of my eye Christian's wife jumping over the barriers with our team manager, and the head of the FA had obviously gone and found her. So I ran down to her, not having a clue what to say. No, we didn't know anything. And that's for me one of the hardest moments ever for me, was when she asked me if he was dead.
Oh God, did she?
And I just said, I don't know. I didn't want to give false hope. I didn't want to say anything, but I didn't know. I didn't know. And that's when Simon came, and obviously Christian was at Inter Milan at the time, and Simon was at AC Milan, and the families lived close, so he knew her a little bit better. He kind of took over, and then one of the lads, they shouted to me to come back, so I ran back to where Christian was, and he was talking. So, right, I ran straight back to Sabrina and say, he's talking. You know, and that relief to be able to say that. But again, I was petrified because I didn't know if he could fall back into it. I was petrified to give that hope, but I wanted to tell her that he is talking.
There is hope.
There is hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, the next
now
few hours.
Now he's playing football again.
Yeah,
now he's playing football again.
He is.
It's extraordinary.
He's back, and
what a story.
Christian will forever be something special. And he was always, as a player, and that we must never forget this as well, that as a player he's an outrageous player and always has been an outrageous player, but he's also now like a kind of beacon of hope as well, in a way, that anything can be possible, and I'm just thankful, and again in the aftermath of it, the days after, I maybe wasn't as how would you say, as kind of emotionally hit as maybe some of the others, because of the Vichai experience, because of the experience I had with Vichai that had ended in the worst possible way. I had the opinion that this could have been so much worse. Like, this could have been so much worse. So let's focus on the fact that Christian's here. You know, and we had a day. We had a day where Christian and his wife and kids came up to the camp after, and that was incredibly healing for the whole team. That was kind of like a way, right? Actually, we have the Euros to play now. Because we lost to Finland that game, and we lost to Belgium as well, and we had to go and beat Russia to stay in the tournament or even give ourselves a chance. So it was, but that kind of made it okay. Now we can move on. Now we can go and play, and again, freedom.
You spanked them.
We did. But that was one of those games where you're going to the game, you know you're going to win, because again, a little bit like the Leicester thing, we had everyone behind us now. We had everyone, because we needed Belgium to win as well, but Belgium were qualified, and you know, you kind of think, will they feel maybe a weakened team just to rest their players for the next round? But a lot of our players had played with, a lot of the Belgian players had played with Christian before and knew him, and they were so motivated to go and do their job that we had kind of we just had to do our job, and we knew that we were going to win that game.
Yeah. Let's take you 3 years on. We've got another Euros coming up. Sounds odd, doesn't it, saying 3 years on, but obviously the delay. You're in the same group as England. How do you fancy your chances?
Difficult group, really, really difficult group for everyone. I mean, England's obviously, England are probably, I don't know, I'm not a betting man, but I'd assume England are one of the favourites to win the whole tournament. And when you look at the array of talent England has, it's incredible. It's incredible the talent they have. For ourselves, I think we've learnt now from these last two tournaments, the Euros with Christian, that we can dream big, because we got to a semi-final despite what had happened.
Very close.
But also then we learned a big lesson in Qatar, having had an incredible qualifier, and be really riding on a high to then get brought back down to earth the way we did by not qualifying from our group. I think that's been a really valuable lesson to say that we aren't going in here thinking we're going to do this, that, and the other. It's one game at a time, and it's the first game, and that's full focus on that.
That's the first cliche you've given me.
An
hour and a half.
It is. But cliches are also cliches because they're true, and like I say, the experiences now have taught us that we can't afford to do that. We're a little country. We don't, when you look at the array of talent a country like England or France or Germany, surely through population mass can choose from. We're 5.5 million people, but we find a way of qualifying. We find a way of generating good players, which means that we're a good team, and we're a difficult team to play against. But we are not the team that's going to go and say, "Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that." We have to now learn from these past experiences and say we're going to take one game at a time and see where that takes us.
Yeah, well, I wish you all the best. I played in '92, of course, when Denmark won it.
Yeah,
when they didn't even qualify.
That's
that
true.
Remarkable achievement. Your dad was in goal. He made a good save from me, actually, in the game.
Was it 0-0? Yeah, 0-0.
It was 0-0, yeah. We weren't very good in '92. I think this England team's a bit better. I also did, actually, my last ever goal in English football was against your dad as well, which made it even more special because he was so good. But Kasper, you have been absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
You've had an amazing career. It's still going. Thank you for everything that you've done, particularly for Leicester.
Thank you.
It gives me great pleasure to be able to do that. And thanks for joining me and giving me so much of your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.